Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. I am 2 days out of quarantine, tested negative twice on rapid tests, no longer have any kind of symptoms, maybe a little scratchiness in my voice. But I'm back, I guess, and we'll see what happens in the future. I got blood clots? I'm going to have a heart attack at 45? We'll see what happens with this crazy old disease called COVID. Great episode today. This is Katie Davidson. If you don't know who Katie is, I'm going to read you their bio right now. Originally from Arizona, musician Katie Davidson, a.k.a. Dear Nora, has been making music for decades now under that name, starting with the Make You Smile 7-inch in 2000 on Magic Marker Records. They took a long break from the moniker after 2008's Three States, but picked it up again with 2018 Skull's Example, which is one of the best albums Katie's ever recorded. I love it a ton. Their new album, Human Features, will be released on Ordinal Records at the end of October, and it's fantastic. Put in your little save basket. Can you do that on Bandcamp? Is there a save basket? I put a little reminder in my calendar so I know when to go to Bandcamp to buy someone's album. Like future guests, Microwaves. Their album comes out in a couple weeks. So a little reminder in my calendar. This is very uninteresting. I'm going to just finish this intro. Anyway, I really dug talking to Katie. We're on the same wavelength, I think, with a lot of stuff, and I thought it was a very interesting talk. You know what? You don't need to hear anything more than that. You're going to hear the actual talk in about 60 seconds. Let me just finish with this intro stuff. You can tell on the other side of having COVID, my patience has thinned. So what I like to do here in the beginning is a little recommended if you like. If this is your first time listening to Beginnings and you're like, oh, I dug this conversation. What other kinds of conversations have you had, Andy? Who else have you talked to? You know, I've talked to hundreds at this point, hundreds of creative people from all walks of life, directors, actors, writers, authors, other musicians. So, you know, Katie's a musician. What about some other people from the world of indie rock? Laura Veers, I just talked to. These are just recent ones that you can go back last couple weeks. Kevin Barnes from Montreal, Carrie Mercer of Frog Eyes, Julie Doiron. Those were all very good talks, so why don't you check those out. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Andy Beckerman. Got some great episodes coming up. The aforementioned Microwaves. Tara Jane O'Neill, wonderful musician, part of the 90s Louisville indie rock scene, and has made a bunch of great albums since then. Robin Holcomb, the founders of the late 70s, early 80s New York downtown art scene. Bill Orchid, I just talked to him yesterday. That was a cool talk. Anyway, enough of this. Thank you so much for listening. You can also hear, I didn't have any brain fog. All I had was a fever and congestion. Didn't have any brain fog, but I am scattered usually, so you're getting that. Anyway, without any further ado, let's talk to Katie. Katie, can I ask we are starting, but I guess this is on the record.
Okay.
This is on the record, by the way. The question I'm about to ask you is the most benign, possibly boring question. So saying it's on the record is only just to say we've started recording.
Okay.
Because you're from the American Southwest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So did you grow up with spiders everywhere?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do? Sorry, I walked out the last couple nights, it's happened slowly that I've seen brown widows everywhere. Mm-hmm. And then last night or the night before, we were just besieged with brown widows. I took our dog out for her 11 p.m. walk, and I had to one had actually gone across the stairs down from our apartment building, and and I had to like jump over a low wall down there just to like holding Mabel under my arm. And I'm like, people have lived out here for centuries. This is like the way I'm handling it, which is to cower, is not the right way. So as someone from the American Southwest, please tell me, what did you do with spiders?
Well, I mean, I was born and raised there. I grew up surrounded by them. I mean, especially because we lived in like a house that my parents were just constantly in the state of building. Like it just was like this like ongoing many years long project of building this like groovy desert hippie house. But what that means is like like most of the time we lived in it until we moved across town, like it, like there were parts of it that weren't finished. And so like, oops, like spiders can get in because they have this, like, you know, it's not done. It's not finished. But weirdly enough, maybe that like made me not scared, like just because they were around. I've never been scared of snakes or spiders. I don't really want to mess with them. Like, I mean, I've definitely been surprised by like rattlesnakes before and like, you know, back away. And I've seen scorpions, but I don't know. I don't really like, they don't like, both of them don't want anything to do with us. So it's more just about like letting them be in their little space.
Yes.
And and like put it out of your mind.
Well, I don't know. That second part's difficult, but I let them be in their own space. I'm not as long as they don't cross my path. It's more about like with the animals. Like I'm like I don't want I don't want anyone to inject venom into me. I'm not looking forward to that. But like it's more about like the animals. Like it would be bad for me, but I think it would be deadly for. We're a household full of elderly animals, and I'm like, it would be deadly for them, and that's more where my concern lies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate concern. I don't like the chances of something like that happening with a really serious spider are probably pretty low, but you got to be vigilant. I mean, you got to think of everything. I think that's a good way to be.
I mean, I'm a fear-based person. Like I have not eaten inside a restaurant in 3 years. I have played the pandemic extremely safe. I'm getting a vibe from you that you're not a fear-based person, but
I mean about certain things, but not really. I mean, I'm not risky or super risky. Actually, I am pretty into risk, but I'm not like super risky. But no, I'm really not that into fear. I mean, I just feel like with a little bit of risk kind of keeps things spicy, keeps life interesting.
I mean, what are you talking about? Like free climbing or stuff like that? Is that
just like, okay, as a kid, like I used to swim in the ocean. I used to love diving in the big waves and stuff. And then like, I think I did a little fear does creep in as you get older, which is natural. And then I had a whole 10 years where I was like, oh, I don't even swim in the ocean anymore. And then I was like, lately, I've just been a little bit like, fuck that. Like, go dive in. What's it going to do? Kill you? No, I mean, maybe, but probably not. Like, go for a swim. So, I mean, and then like, the thing is, it's like, it's almost always rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of think I like being like right up against the edge like that, but not in an extreme sports kind of way. Just like, oh, let's like push the comfort zone a little bit. Like, I feel like I kind of need that.
Why? Like, what is it filling in you?
I need a challenge. I need novelty. I need to not just feel the same feelings every day. I need to not like feel like I'm on a straight line. I just want to I need those peaks and valleys. Like, just like I said, not in an extreme way, but just to kind of keep it spicy.
Yeah, I get that. It's weird. I understand that on a fundamental level, and yet I'm a highly routinized person. Mm-hmm. But the reason I didn't want like a normal job or want to, like, even when I was in I used to be a philosophy professor. Even when I was doing that, I like genuinely had this vision one day of like me sliding down a muddy hill into an open grave, and I could just see the rest of my life like that. It was like much. It
Wait,
seems
like literally?
yeah, like I imagined it. Like it wasn't
Oh,
like
okay.
it wasn't like I had done ayahuasca and suddenly it like overcame me or something like that, right? It was just like it's how this was pre-therapy, so the way that my
Right.
brain communicated with me
Yeah.
was through images that it would throw
Yeah.
into my consciousness and be like, can you understand this? I know you can't access your emotions, but can you get this part?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I do want to respect anxiety. Like I feel like I do understand it to a certain extent. It's not like I haven't felt that. And I know that it's a lot of people feel that, especially right now. And so I do respect that. I mean, I don't know. I just like, I think the second life feels super routine to me. I'm like, okay, I gotta do something. Like, I need
Uh,
something, you know, I gotta go visit a place I've never been or something like that, you know?
yeah, yeah, that's what's competing in me because I want to do all that stuff, but
Yeah.
also I'm just like, if you don't leave the house, don't like just do the normal things you're supposed to do. Get up, do the dishes, walk the dog, like that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
It's just like just do that, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's not OCD, but I would say
Right.
it's like on the spectrum.
Yeah. I mean, I think that stuff is so important. And like, I'm like an air sign. I'm a Libra, and I really am up here. Like, so like when I I practice like earthy things like that are grounding, like the routine stuff you're talking about. It's very, very, very good for me. But my instinct is to be like, let's go do something. Let's get out of the house. Let's get out of the routine. Let's dream up something wild right now. Like, I mean, I think both are really good for you, but like it really is about finding the balance.
Were you always like that? Was that something that goes back to childhood? Like when did that part of your personality emerge?
That's a great question. I guess I would have to say I think I've always been like that. Um, I mean, one thing I always come back to is like my parents raised me really independently. My sister and I. Um, in fact, I was just reading a book touching on subjects like this, but kind of about how like parents now that like won't let their kids play out of their sight ever, and like I was just feel really fortunate to have been born when I was and part of the generation where like my sister and I just played for like 8 hours out of our parents' sight,
Yeah. Yeah.
every day and made up what we wanted to do, like followed our intuition, came up with weird plans and games, and then like saw our parents later. And it's like, I I'm just so grateful I was raised that way. On some level, I understand why, like, where that took, like, parenting took a turn, but just it's tough. Like, I just grew up like outside, like doing stuff. Um, and I do think that independence that my parents instilled in me and my sister, like we just kind of, yeah, we're sort of I'm using quotes, free. Like, I think that it made us feel free, and we could like just go do things or think of things and go do them. I definitely feel lucky that way.
Yeah, I think we're close to the same age. So I also had that kind of thing where my parents, like, I'd come home from school or whatever, and then my parents would just be like, be home by dinner time. And then I would go out and just play around in the neighborhood with my friends.
Yeah.
So I remember that freedom.
I mean, yeah, aren't you glad that you were raised that way?
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yet somehow you are a confident, non-fear-based person. And I am terrified of anything outside the borders of my apartment.
I mean, well, the world's a pretty scary place right now, so I don't blame you.
Well, I blame me. My therapist blames me. So, well, not blames, but I'm kind of curious. What was it like growing up in this house that was like half built? Like, were you born? Like, when you were born, is that where you were? Is that where your family was?
I was born in, well, my parents lived in a town called Cave Creek, Arizona, when I was born, but well, actually, they were living in a geodesic dome that my dad built
What?
on a hillside in the Sonoran Desert, so just outside of Cave Creek, Arizona. And when I came along, I was born in 1977. I think my mom told my dad like, "Hey, I'm enjoying this vibe we've got going on out here, but you know what? Like, I've got a newborn, and I can't do this at least immediately." So I think the first 2 years of my life, or something like that, maybe first year, we lived in an apartment in Scottsdale, kind of Phoenix vibes. And but then when I was like old enough to walk around, like they moved us back out to the dome. So I grew up in the dome, and then while we were living in the dome, my dad was and mom were building a like bigger house up the hill from it. So yeah, so and that was the house that was like just kind of a work in progress for
Hmm.
many, many, many years.
I sorry, I exclaimed what exclamation mark, exclamation mark, because that seems like such a 70s thing, the geodesic
Yeah,
dome. I forget who's the
yeah.
architect, who's that was their
Oh,
thing.
the Buckminster Fuller.
Yes, Buckminster Fuller. I love his name.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like such a 70s thing. There's a particular vibe that I assume goes along with it. Like, do you mind like just describing the layout of it a little bit for me?
I mean, it was one room. It was one giant circular room with a dome overhead, and then like a pretty big, I don't even know the square footage. 800 square feet, something big, and then a big, stairs internally, and then like a big loft that was like a big bedroom. And I think like my crib, but like I feel like my crib was like down in the main room, and like I don't really remember it very well, but there are some pictures.
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, yeah, because it feels like I'm trying to think like there's some kind of communal feeling to that, at least in my head. I would imagine. I'm wondering if
Hmm.
that, but if you were too young to like kind of like soak it up.
I mean, I think my dad was just not in like both of my parents were just not into doing normal things like that. They really didn't have any need to like live in a neighborhood, or it was, I mean, that was their version of freedom, is like buying land far away from people. We had some neighbors, but they weren't super close. Outside of a small town, and just like, hey, I'm gonna do my thing over here. Just like, let us be.
Yeah, I mean,
But it wasn't like there weren't a lot of people around. I mean, my parents had friends that would come over, but it wasn't like a hippie commune vibe at all.
yeah, I mean they're literally living like at the very tail end of like the yeoman farmer dream of like a patch of land and
Yeah,
freedom on that land.
right. And then you mix in like this, but the like extreme nature of the Sonoran Desert. It's not like this was like fertile landscape where they could like only eat from their garden. It was desert living, you know. It's pretty extreme. I mean, it's so funny because I just like all of this stuff feels so normal to me, but I realize that it's pretty far away from the way other people grew up.
Yeah, but it's also really interesting and a really robust kind of, that's a terrible adjective for what I'm really trying to aim at, but we'll just go with that. Just kind of it gives you a unique kind of foundation to already spring from. Like you could have grown up in the suburbs and then had to figure out like your own path, as opposed
Yeah.
to coming out of a path where we're like, oh yeah, we're already like kind of like separated from culture, and so you can kind of go figure out who you want to be and what you want to do on your own. as opposed to like I had to like dig through layers of just like the super ego kind of telling me what to do.
Right. Yeah, so true. And then in classic form, like, so like the trope is like the suburban kid has the normal upbringing, but then like they rebel and they're the hippie and they want to get the hell away from the suburb. But like, of course, me and my sister, at least when we were younger, all we wanted was to have a normal house. Like we just like, cause you're just, when you're like 11, you're like tween and you're like, I live in the hippie house. It's far away from town. It's like not that close to our school or our friends. And so you idolize like the other, basically. Like, we just were like, why can't we have a normal house? Like, you know, but so I think we fine. We got over that. But I think ultimately both my sister and I are like pleased with the challenges we faced growing up in a scenario like that. But it is kind of funny to think back of like, we weren't like appreciating it. Like,
Sure.
I think we appreciated elements of it, like being able to be outdoors and be in the desert and stuff, but it wasn't like, we're like, damn, we're living the dream. We got our dome out here. Like, we were like, can we get a TV, please? Like, like, we finally convinced them to get us a Nintendo. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Do you think it insulated you in some way though from, I guess, the mainstream corporate American culture?
Maybe on some level. I think one way is like we definitely, it wasn't strict, but like we didn't grow up eating junk food. Like, and I don't really have much of a sweet tooth now. Like I was never into candy. So I think there's some things like that, but I was seeking out culture however I could find it, so I guess we were sheltered in some ways, but not in others. The second I could get a subscription to Rolling Stone and Spin, like I was like, Mom, I need this.
Yeah.
Because like we're talking pre people using the internet kind of vibe.
Yeah, those were my lifelines to learn about music.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's how I found out Wowie Zowie was out. My mom picked me up from my girlfriend's house, and she had picked up the mail on the way out, and Spin was sitting in the back seat, and I flipped through it, and I was like, Mom, we have to go to the CD store.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I think I even heard about like Guided by Voices for the first time. It was a tiny little blurb in Rolling Stone, like not like those little tiny blurbs.
Yep.
It was like a paragraph long, and I was like, they sound cool. Like just getting culture wherever I possibly could,
Yeah. Do you think though that besides like the aesthetic parts of culture, I was thinking a lot about how I think about this a lot lately, how much of like I don't have a good word for this. Let's just say, I'm going to say the dumb version, but like capitalism. And I said in that voice, but just how much of that spirit of like Ayn Randian bullshit and whatever was floating around in the 80s got into my head, and how I had to, even though no one was like pushing it on me, right? It was just in the air so much because I was growing up in the suburbs. And I'm wondering if you had some kind of space so that it didn't infect you as much as it infected me.
I don't think so. I think, I mean, possibly just ever so slightly, but I was obsessed with all the popular name brands, and my parents didn't have a lot of money, but of course I wanted like $100 Oakleys and like, and that like, fortunately we had, our cousins were older than us, and their parents always bought them like the cool name brand clothes. So we got them as hand-me-downs, and we were like upset, we were fully indoctrinated, like probably just about anyone else. Maybe we didn't consume as much like television quite as much as some other people, but like, I mean, I think we were aware of all that kind of stuff, and it definitely was like fully seeping in,
Okay. So social reproduction of capitalism still did its job on you, even if you weren't like going to the mall every weekend.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so how did you get out from under that?
From under.
From under, just like I'm again, I'm stuttering because I don't have a great word for it. Let's just say like corporate American culture as just a shorthand for for this like larger kind of spiritual, like the neoliberal age.
I mean,
from the
I'm not
70s
out
on.
from under it. I'm not out from under it.
But like, don't you think you are in some way as being a musician and kind of doing your own thing? And
Yeah, I'm a critic of it. I'm certainly a critic of it. I mean, yes, I mean, I think that in some ways I definitely tried to lead my life in a way that's not just like feeding from the trough or whatever.
That's great.
you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
you know. So absolutely, I think there's an element of that. But I mean, look at my studio. It's full of like things. I mean, I buy myself things. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Sure.
I'm out of it, but I'm in it. You know what I'm saying? Like
We
I drive
are.
a friggin' Subaru. Like
Yeah.
I'm in it.
Yes,
I'm in it.
We have we've leased a Hyundai Ioniq. Sure. I think though that like there is a difference. You could have just dove into it. I think there's a difference between someone who is like conscious and aware of like, all right, well, I still have to live my life and I can't like not, I still have goals and ambitions and things like that. I guess that's the thing I'm looking at. I've been thinking about this in the last like year or two. It's like, how did your ambitions form? And how did you not just like say like, all right, well, I'm going to move to Los Angeles and write songs for Carly Rae Jepsen. I don't know, whoever, right? You could have done that. You could have gone a very corporate route and you chose not to. Or maybe you just kind of naturally, without being self-aware of it, gravitated towards that. I don't know. That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah. Okay. So there's so much to unpack here, and I'll try to step back, or at least kind of sort of start from whatever beginnings, the name of the podcast here. So ambition. I mean, if we're just talking really, yeah, this is such a boring answer, but it's just honest. It's like, just like I was describing about the Rolling Stone, et cetera. Like, I just immediately obsessed with culture and music.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I don't really know how else to explain it except for it just grabbed me, and I was in all the way, all in. Age 4, Casey Kasem top 40. I'm fucking obsessed. Do you know what I mean? Like inject pop music into my veins. Like I need it. Like, so, so there's that, like, I guess just the thing that, the thing about being a kid and like the thing that you're naturally deeply drawn to is like, you can ignore it as much as you want, but it's usually going to be the thing that you end up doing. So there was that. I mean, I don't really know where exactly that came from. I mean, my dad is a musician, and I did grow up around musicians a little bit, but like it wasn't just like hammered into me. I really kind of feel like my parents weren't into pop culture. I mean, they gave me their Beatles records, but they didn't really know what was going on in music in the 80s. So yeah, so kind of 80s perspective, just like gobbling culture, just that from the deepest core of me inside, like just needing it.
Yeah.
Then then we're talking 90s, early 90s, entering high school, gaining more of an awareness of music outside of just like the Cyndi Lauper, Prince, Madonna sphere, and like being like, oh, who's Liz Phair? Who's like you were saying, like Pavement or Tori Amos, or even like I loved the Beastie Boys. And then, especially with like the Liz Phair angle, I was like, wait, I could make this. Like I could make, like it gives you like it gave me a window into being like, this isn't just a thing that like these wild personalities from like New York are doing. you know, that just there's some access point. Am I answering your question?
There
Kind
is
of.
no. I'm looking for no specific answer.
Okay.
So
I'm
however the prompt really strikes you,
okay.
I think is a good answer.
Cool. So then I guess the short way to sum up like early 90s is like I was used to play saxophone in band and I was like, no, I'm all in on guitar now. And then just like I was kind of an introvert, kind of an extrovert, kind of both. But I would just lock myself in my room hours on end, like teaching I knew like five chords, but then I taught myself how to play bar chords. So it's just bringing that same um, sort of gusto from like childhood of like consuming culture to like trying so hard to emulate it and like participate in it, but still very in a very contained unit of like a locked teenager's bedroom. But like fully like jamming so hard on a Green Day song, like trying so hard to figure, like being like, I've got to get this. I didn't really write songs then. So the next step is like second half of the 90s, entering college. And that's where like the whole switch of like, oh, like I consume culture. Oh, wait, I can emulate culture. Oh, wait, I can make my own culture. That's sort of like the trajectory here. So mid 90s, I'm at Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon. I meet, friends I'm still friends with now. And
do you mind if I interrupt for a moment?
Go ahead.
What led you up to Lewis and Clark? Like, did you want to study something, or was it just like, or was it kind of like a random choice?
Yeah, it was a little random. I had not actually been to Portland before ever, and I just knew that like grunge was from the Northwest, and I was like, I need to be there. It's like just that same kind of intensity, like that compulsion. I was like, this is where I need to be. Even though I didn't know much about it, actually. So yeah, I mean, spent 18 years in Arizona and then just got on a plane and then suddenly I lived in Portland. I wish I don't have a better answer to that.
I think I understand it. I understand the compulsion. I understand that like that inchoate need to do something, whether it's writing or making music or I get it. And I don't have a good understanding of what the foundations of that inchoate need are. I just understand it. It just resonates with me. I'm like, yeah, I have that too.
I mean, it kind of circles back to what we started talking about at the beginning of the hour, which is like, I didn't even question taking that risk. I just was like, I'm going to move to Portland. End of sentence, period. Like, I just was like, I want to do this. It's different. I'm being called there. I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. That's why I think I was harping on like the fact that you grew up in like outside of Phoenix. Like I think I read something last night where you were like outside of a small town, which was outside Phoenix.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And that I think I'm harping on that just because I think I'm like, oh, you have this distance that I didn't have because I had that same inchoate need that I then had to excavate from underneath both like my parents' wants for me, which they were great parents, but I'm just saying like they had wants that I had to that got intertwined with my own wants, and also then like what I was the path I was supposed to follow as a middle-class Jewish kid from the suburbs of Pennsylvania.
Right.
And I'm wondering if maybe you had some kind of separation, or there could be something else. That I guess that's the kind of thing I guess I'm interrogating.
I mean, the big difference there between what it sounds like you were experiencing and what I did is like, and maybe this comes from like the quote unquote hippie perspective, but like my parents, I have a lot of friends who have parents who really had a path in mind for them. we did not have that at all. It wasn't not in a sad way. It was just like, they just wanted us to be happy. That sounds very idealistic. And we were
That sounds great.
very far from a perfect family. But on the other hand, they did just kind of support what we wanted. They weren't like, well, you're going to be a lawyer, and so sign you up to go to law school now. Like, there was never that. I was like, I'm going to go to a kind of expensive liberal arts school that we can't afford, and I'm going to study English. Like, I mean, fortunately, we got a bunch of financial aid to even make that happen. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that is like the one of the most notable things I feel like my parents did right, is like not apply pressure where it was sort of needless to apply, because I just kind of felt free to, pursue pursue some whims and like see where they took me.
Yeah, that's great. How did your parents even end up there? Were your grandparents did they have the same relation to your grandparents that you did to them, or do they have to like kind of like strike out on their own?
I mean, they struck out on their own. Like, I think it's a classic story. Like, their parents were World War II veterans, and they were hippies. I mean, it's like kind of the classic boomer story, of like corporate job in the suburbs. No, thank you. Give me my geodesic dome kind of vibe. But yeah, I mean, I think so. I think on one side of the family, actually, there were like some more like renegade spirits, but I don't know enough about them to say. But that's I think what was going on there.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this again, using this show is just me projecting my own existential outline on other people and seeing what fits. My parents, my grandfather fought in World War II, Normandy. Mm-hmm. My dad was a hippie, but then my dad got a job. Oh, this is interesting. I wonder if this is the difference. My dad wanted to be an urban planner. Mm-hmm. There was a glut of urban planners in the late 70s. And so then he just got a job doing what he could. He in business, capital B business. Mm-hmm. And I wondered, was your dad or your mom or both, did they follow out their own ambitions?
I think to a certain degree. I mean, they're both creative people. My dad still plays music basically for a living. I mean, I think he teaches music lessons. Just to be super clear, like, we're not in great touch. But like, our relationship is essentially fine. It's just like he's not very much in my life. Mm-hmm. But the short answer on that is, like, he's a musician. He still plays music for a living. He teaches lessons. My mom was always an actress, and I think she had greater ambitions to take that deeper earlier in life. And then when she had 2 kids, she was like, I need money. Like, I need some more stability, even though she loved doing it. So she became a teacher, which is just like the flips on some level, like the flip side of the coin of being an actress, right? Mm-hmm. Just standing in front of an audience all day. So, and she's retired now, but, and then she got re-involved in community theater like later. So, I mean, I think they both never totally let it go, but, I mean, there's I mean, I think they both had to reconcile the challenges of being an artist in the United States in like the 20th and 21st centuries.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think you picked up on any of that when you were growing up?
Like, don't be an artist, it's too hard.
Not even that necessarily. Just like, I don't even mean like verbally. I just wonder if there's like, I wonder if my dad I've never asked him because I don't know if I really want to have this conversation, but like, I wonder if he like regretted not going where he could to be an urban planner, or like pushing harder on it. Like, he met my mom and then and they got married, and then like 6 years later they had me. So they were just having fun on their own. But I wonder if I ever picked, I don't think he liked this job in capital B business when I was growing up. I think I picked up on that a lot. And I think that's one of these kind of like, again, just little signals that I got that I'm just like, oh, this is not for me. I want to pursue that inchoate need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if
yeah.
I
mean, I think I hate to be this pessimistic. Don't you feel like just about everyone has like not what's the right word, settled in some sort of way? I mean, I feel like very few people are like doing their pie in the sky dream life thing. Like, I mean, I'm saying that as a person who's pretty happy. And like, I've got a band. We have at least a small dedicated following that I feel so grateful for. But I mean, I grind at a full-time job, which I enjoy. But I mean, it's like, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm just like who hasn't compromised?
I think you're right. Everyone's like, I would love to be staffed on a TV show at the moment, which I'm not.
Right. I see.
That was the dream, but I'm still doing the stuff I want to be doing.
Right.
Or I'm in the orbit of the stuff that I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And it's nearby, if not attainable in some way. And I mean, it took a long time, and and a lot of like false starts and a lot of debt to get to this point. But like, I think if you have a job you like and you're making art you like, you're like, no one's dream. You're never gonna like attain the actual thing that you wanted, whatever that was when you were like 8 years old or something like that. But if you can be somewhere in that vicinity, I think you've done it.
Yeah.
My thought is mostly that like people just follow whatever the script is that's handed to them. And they're like, oh, this is the easiest way to do it. Sure. And I'm not judging them in any way, but I'm saying that like there's a lot of people who are just more interested in just a kind of like, what's the word? I'm like friction-free existence.
Go make the paycheck, go home, watch Netflix.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not judging them. I'm just saying, but that's like what a lot of people prefer.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think throughout this conversation, I've described like the artist impulse, and it's so hard to know where it actually originates from, but it's there, and it's like a burning, like this, it's like a flame. And you can't extinguish it, or if you like try to suppress it, like then bad things will happen. I feel very lucky with where I am right now. Is it ideal? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe not really, but what would be ideal? I'm on a major label and I don't do anything else but music, but the label guys contact me every once an hour to tell me to post a TikTok video. And then, can you actually, okay, we signed you up for a Pepsi collab. This is like, is that ideal? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it might or it might not be. It depends on like, I always think about this a lot, and because we're around the same age, I don't know if this infected you as much as it infected me, but like, you can't sell out. That was this kind of like feeling that I grew up with, is like, what is sell? And then I had to start asking like, well, what is selling out? And then there's like, well, are you changing the way you make art in order to make money? And if you are specifically doing that, well, that's selling out. It's not just like, so like, I don't know, if you were on a major label and like you had to write songs like Ariana Grande, I'm just grabbing names from pop culture,
Yeah.
Desperate. I'm saying I'm desperately grabbing these names as if I'm like, wait, who's something people listen to? If you had to do that and it hurt you and like that burning and it like was like a bunch of feet stomping on that burning need, right? That would be the bad version of it.
Yeah. Okay. So here's something funny in that I've been maybe dancing around it. You probably already know this just from sounds like you've done a little research or you've been handed some information about me, but like you do know that I work like in music licensing, correct?
I don't. I actually
Okay, so
looked up what I looked up was your name plus childhood, your name plus parents, and I wrote down as much information as I could
awesome.
find.
Nice.
Yeah. So no, I did not know you worked in music licensing.
No, and that's totally fine. You don't need to know that. But I think the reason I'm bringing it up now is because I've been dancing around it because it might help answer several of your questions, especially getting back to the one, I think it was like 3 questions ago. And you're like, what made you do this instead of doing this? That like more corporate approach to music. So that's the freaking weird thing at this point is that I do my weird thing over here, but I'm in like, I do not work for a corporation. I work for a small business, but we make music for big brands. Like it is corporate adjacent in every way possible. And so so it's kind of hard to say because I absolutely love my job. It definitely is I do some deep compartmentalization. Like maybe not even on purpose. I think it just there's like these sorting bins and it just work stuff goes over here. But then like I'm going to make a Dear Nora album, and then that goes into some weird bin that I don't even understand how I can keep that separate. Maybe it's not completely separate, but pretty separate from what I do at work. Yeah. So I guess the point is to answer your question from before, like I kind of do both. Like,
but I'm saying you're following out like an artistic impulse, even in your work, right? Even in your, in music licensing, right? You are following out an artistic impulse as opposed to like, I pushed that down for a long time. And like, I tried to find half measures where I could like studying philosophy where I'm like, well, this is kind of artistic and it's kind of what my parents want me. They want me to be a lawyer or whatever. Right. I'm kind of halfway in between and it's not really, I don't really like it. I like philosophy, but I don't really like the corporate academic structures and all the stuff, but I'm going to push myself because I just wasn't self-aware enough. I was just kind of like muddling through trying to make everyone happy, including myself. And it didn't work out. And I think the difference is you're like, okay, I like this pays me money and it gives me the space where I can be artistic in this other way.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's like the way I approach making music these days, it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, and also it just keeps evolving. But I guess like to respond to something like I'm taking from you that like doing something like writing songs for Ariana Grande would be like the thing that I wouldn't aspire to. But the funny part is like I would love to write songs for Ariana Grande. That would be amazing. Like I would be like, this is tight. Like because I love pop music. Yeah. And I like yes, some of the music would be very formulaic, but I don't know. I guess I'm trying to say I'm here for all of it. Like I'm here for some weird ass music and I'm here for some poetry. I'm here for some challenging, experimental, anything. But I am 100% here also for the new Beyonce album that just dropped. I'm here for both. Like I receive them I receive both with like open arms, you know?
I 100% get that. I would love to write either a Adam Sandler film or also like a weird experimental like Peter Greenaway type film. I am happy with it. I would love to write on the dumbest sitcom in the world.
Right.
Or, also make a prestige TV show for HBO or whatever, right? I 100% get that.
Yeah, and you should. Dude, you got this.
But do you want like would you actually want to like go out and do what it takes to be like the 23rd songwriter on a Beyonce song or whatever?
Right. Like, would I go strive to do that?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. If someone called me and like my networking led me to that, like, and I use networking in a loose sense of like, I just know a ton of music people.
Right.
I know a ton of music people doing a ton of different types of things. Like if someone was like, you want to be in on this session? I would be like, duh, of course I do. But no, am I going to change the structure of my day to be like, I need to go make it as a songwriter. I need to go be in the pit. I need to be on like whatever Max Martin's new jam is. Like, no, like I'm not going to go look for that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that I was like trying to figure out, right? There is that impulse in you to make music, but you're not going to, like, in the same way that like I didn't move out to Los Angeles until I had to. I was not looking forward to moving here. It was just that like we had kind of like hit the ceiling in New York, and it was just like, well, I guess the next step is Los Angeles to continue to make a living doing this stuff.
Yeah. I'm still very content doing Dear Nora right now. But I definitely have thought a lot about like writing for other people, because I have so much more music that just doesn't come out. Like I'm going to say something harsh, but like I just can just come up with, like, I could just write like a really good melody, like every single day. I could do it every single day. Like if someone was like churn out melodies, I'd be like, okay, easy. Like, I'm sorry to be like kind of cocky like that, but I just could do it. And so, I wish I did have a better framework for like funneling those to other people who are excited to receive them. That would be kind of cool, but like, no, am I going to go chase down some manager or some publishing house to try to really do that? Not really.
By the way, you've earned the right to be cocky when it comes to songwriting. I think at this point you have earned that right.
I'll at least be cocky about being able to just like cast off good melodies, but I mean, I don't know. I think I'm still earning the songwriting badge.
I don't know. And even if not, I think I have come to this point where I'm just like, oh, I'm a good writer. And I can just, I can say that. I don't have to like hide behind, I don't have to be like super arrogant about it, but I don't have to hide behind like false modesty. And I can just say like, no, I'm a good writer. I'm great at dialogue. I'm very good at writing characters.
Yeah. It's helpful to get there. Yeah.
It was hard one for me. It seems that's why when we started off, I was like, oh, you seem like a very confident person. And I was kind of curious about like where that came from. Yeah.
I really think it has to do with being raised to be really independent. You're like, I didn't have to rely. Like, I was like, I want to do this thing. I can do it. It doesn't mean I've just been like insanely confident my whole life, like far from it. But I think that it has to trace back to that, you know. Maybe that, like, I don't know if that's like that's got to be nurture, not nature, right? I mean, I think it's just kind of like what, or who knows?
Yeah,
I have no idea, but I do think it has something to do with like the way I was raised.
Yeah, I mean, my theory is that your brain is in some state when you're born, right? It's like whatever the folds are and the pattern of neurons and synapses and everything like that, and then it's going to like when does your brain settle? Sometime in your early 20s. So then the development of that is going to probably do more, like the biology is like a basis, but then the development is going to affect it, and whatever chemicals get introduced into your brain and stuff is going to change some of those pathways through the next 20 years.
Sure. So who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, that's why the dialectic of parents is so interesting to me, because it is like, oh, well, how did their personalities infect you in order for you to be a fantastic songwriter?
Yeah. I got all of their good traits and all of their bad ones. They're all in there like just a big stew. Yeah. Um, yeah. I don't know. I like, this is almost cliche. Like if you listen to interviews with songwriters or read interviews with them, like feel like at some point in the interview, it almost always comes down to like, I don't know how this stuff comes out of me. And it's cliche, but it just isn't there. And then it's there. And it's just like, it's not to say it's not brewing or bubbling beneath the surface. It's not like I can't feel that or like, but, there is really an element of magic.
I think there has to be like some amount of freedom or some amount of, I don't know what the word I want, but like, let's just go with freedom that allows your brain to play.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that when it just emerges out of you, it comes from, because this is it for me. Like I can be fucking around on guitar. I'm not like a songwriter, but I have been in bands and stuff like that. But like I can be fucking around on guitar and be like, oh, that's a good memory. And it's because a good melody. And it's because I it's because I kind of had that foundation. Like I know what kind of sounds good on a guitar or whatever, right? That before, but that emerging is just from the confluence of play and the foundation of knowledge that I had. And it's probably the same in some way. It is that complicated kind of complexity. And I mean that in terms of, oh God, I'm going back into grad school now. But like I studied complexity theory, like philosophy of complexity theory. And in it, it's just like in complex systems, like people's brains or even in like bands or something like that, what happens is that you'll create a way of being where things can emerge out of that. And there's the second level. And that's probably, I know that's a very complicated way of saying it, but I think that's probably what you're describing.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, the word play definitely resonates with me. Like that is this part of my brain I keep trying to describe that just feels so mysterious or like what's even happening over there. I mean, I really do think you're right. I think it has something to do with like, that's where I play. Like I just get to do, like I get to do make believe over here, like kind of, I'll play a different character or like, oh, let's just see it for fun. Just see what happens when you put those two words together.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's fun. Like it's so reductive to say like the word fun and maybe even the word play, but it's just so accurate. Like, I think it's just sort of allowing yourself to not be critical and not have worry too much about rules and just like, yeah, I do think that's where really cool songs come from, or they can.
Yeah. I mean, we're right at the end of the show, but like, was there not only what you grew up with a kind of, freedom to play, right? Was there also an emotional freedom in your household when you were growing up? Were you allowed to kind of just like explore that part of you?
Oh man. I think so. Yeah, like that's a tough question. Maybe not so much as like the literal play we're talking about. Like it's just because like every family on some level has some level of dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
It can be, it's like, I feel like the family that has literally zero might not exist. I could be wrong. But like we were operating at some level of dysfunction. So I can't I can't just give you a rosy answer that's like, yeah, I was just so free and I just explored every emotion out in the public space with my family. Like, absolutely not. But maybe a little bit. Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would probably be impossible for me to answer that right now. I'll probably end up thinking about that for like the next month.
Was there a point in your life where you did start to feel like you could be a little more free emotionally? And the only reason I asked that is like, I'm wondering, how did that feed into your creative output?
Okay, that's such a great question, because I would say something that I think people might think the opposite of. I I've been so into like just aging. Like I feel more emotionally free in the like I'm in my mid 40s. In the last 5 to 10 years than I have my whole life. And I'm making music that I like better than any other time I've ever made it. And so I think aging is beautiful. Like I just think like the stuff that you cast off and just get like these like the Wes Anderson like slow motion like throwing suitcases like and you're just running. Like I think like aging is sort of like that, because you're just like, why was I even fucking worrying about that shit? Like, sorry for my language, but like,
Yeah.
and then suddenly you're like, I feel so much better. Like it's like far from perfect, but I think the last 10 years of my life are probably the 10 best, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you. Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much for joining me. This was such a wonderful discussion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and like great questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I love your music, so I cannot give a person a compliment. I seize up. But yes, I love your music. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, oh, 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 bye. Bye.